Hello, everyone, and welcome to Journey to Success Radio, a show featuring people and companies who are making a positive contribution to the world. This show will help you learn how to apply success principles in every area of your life so that you can make the most out of your skills and talents and accomplish more of your goals. To find out more about the show, please visit www.journeytosuccessradio.com.
Hello and welcome to Journey to Success Radio. My name is Diana Dettinger, best-selling author of the book Modus Vivendi, Your Life, Your Way, as well as international speaker and founder of the Meaning of Life School, where you learn to be you. My mission is to connect you to your innate greatness for a healthier, happier, and more fulfilling life. You can find more about this interview at journeytosuccessradio.com. And my guest today is Ibeh Agbanyem. And welcome, Ibeh. I really appreciate you taking time to be with us today.
Thank you so much. I'm grateful to be here.
Yeah, now Ibeh and I are co-authors in the book Journey to Success Volume 2. We, obviously highly recommend that you hop on over to Amazon after this interview and, download it on the Kindle or go ahead and purchase it. It's a compilation book of just 21 amazing inspirational stories. And, it's very important nowadays to keep positive. Not only are, Ibeh and I both, co-authors in this book, but we share a lot of common interests. And one thing that, I think Ibeh and I could actually talk for days and days and days, together is all about our interest in people and behavior and what make people tick. I mean, I think we're sort of like, instead of the tech geeks, we're not techie geeks, we're like behavior geeks. We love to know why people do what they do and why they say what they say. And that has just, been a big driver in our research. Tell people about your process and all your studies. I mean, you have this amazing, CV that I can read it to in just a second, but give people this flavor about, why you're so called to help people in this area of behavior.
Thank you very much, Dan, for the question. I've always liked helping people help themselves. And that burning desire has compelled me to know myself even better. So the journey is actually all about me finding myself, and in the process, I'm helping others through the authenticity of what I'm doing. That's basically the summary of why I do what I do.
Great. Yeah, because Ibeh is a Harvard-trained leadership coach strategist, Amazon best-selling author. He's a public speaker. I mean, you have been invited all over the place. He presented at the American Society for Quality in Orlando, Florida, the George Washington University in Washington, D.C., University of Ibadan in Nigeria, collaborated with international conferences, in Amsterdam, and in Holland, presented at the University of Ghana in, 2016, the School of Sciences, the International Conference on the topic Fear the Invisible Deterrent. I mean, you have presented at the Arizona State University where you live, in Arizona. He shared the stage with the mayor of Tempe, Arizona, Mark Mitchell, former Congressman Harry Mitchell during the Don Carlos Humanitarian Awards, even, at Tempe Community College or Community Council. He's been invited guest at Arizona State Universities. I mean, you just are really all over the place. Amazingly well prepared, even as a reviewer of the Association of Psychological Science Student Caucus, the APSSC Student Research Award, contributor to the Arizona Republic. And now, are you still working on your, after your master's degree in industrial organizational psychology, are you still working on your PhD?
Yes, actually, I have completed the entire the courses. I'm just on that dissertation mode right now, which what they call ABD, which is all about dissertation. So I'm very excited. I'm looking forward to graduate very soon.
Well, and then what is your dissertation on?
My dissertation is on employee retention in the manufactured housing industry, which is mobile home. They tend to have a very high turnover in that field, in that industry. So I'm very curious to know, why do people quit in that industry. And it's very interesting what I'm, yeah.
Well, because you even talk about if I'm not mistaken, eBay has like 3 books already on Amazon: The Power of Engagement, Fear, and then the best-selling book is The 5 Principles of Collaboration. And I remember that you talked about even like the cost of turnover, how many, $4 billion of employee stress and what that causes. Is it just absenteeism? Is it, stress and illness? I mean, it's amazing how the lack of, let's say, stress management skills or the lack of behavior really is costing. I mean, not just costing the health of employees, but costing even the companies in the lack of their presence. Cost production and all that kind of stuff. That's a really interesting topic. Let's give people some great takeaways. What would you suggest if someone is dissatisfied in their job? How do they change their behavior, or how do they reach success, even if they don't like what they're doing?
That's a very good question. One thing I have realized in this journey called life, because life is a journey, is that from research, I understand that 95% of the population has no definite of purpose in life. So out of that 5% that has definite of purpose, only 1% achieve that purpose. So that will take us back to the question. I think the best thing to do is to spend more time to understand yourself. Because research has showed over and over again, people try to run away from their thoughts. Okay? And a recent study from Harvard suggested that 67% of men do not like to spend time alone with their thoughts, as opposed to 25% of women. So what does that tell us? People do not like to sit down and analyze and use what scientists call metacognition, thinking about your own thinking. And I'm saying that to say that if people can spend more time entertaining their thoughts, it is likely that they will apply what, again, psychologists call desire thinking. Desire thinking is you see life through the lens of optimism as opposed to pessimism. So the first place to start is yourself. For example, if you're not happy in the workplace, you apply what is called metacognition, which means thinking about your own thought. Ask yourself, why am I not happy? If you can answer that question, let's assume you say, I'm not happy because my boss doesn't like me. And then you ask yourself again, how come my boss don't like me? Well, he don't like me because of he want me to work longer hours. Well, how come he want me to work longer hours? He want me to work longer hours. So you keep asking that question. You realize that at the end of that question, it comes back to you as a person, not the other person. So to answer your question, I think the first thing that we need to do, what I spend most of my time doing in research, is what Albert Bandura, social psychologist Albert Bandura, called self-efficacy. The journey of knowing yourself. So instead of putting the heat on the other person, put it on yourself. Ask yourself, why am I feeling this way? And if you start that question from that position of power, you realize that actually if you can fix yourself, you can fix your environment. And
yeah, it's actually...
Dr. Joe Dispenza once said that, we've heard about knowledge is power, but he actually said knowledge of self is self-empowerment.
Yeah, that's great. That's one of those writer downer kind of phrases, that know yourself. Well, even I know that you love even Greek philosophy. And, the chapter that you have in the book Journey to Success, Volume 2, is success, about the Socrates, the Socratic hope for in our lives. And, Socrates was all about asking questions. And his main, driving, let's say, quote or phrase was, I really don't teach people anything, but I help them reflect. I help them ask themselves questions. And I think, that is just an amazing help to modern day people who are overly committed. They're too busy. And if they're not too busy, they're distracting themselves on social media. How can you, because you've really got the research behind, why are people falling into this trap of not wanting to know who they are?
That's a very good question. The answer in a very simple word is fear. Fear of knowing themselves. Because we are very much, we don't want to go through the process to actually know who we are. It's a very scary journey. And that's what Carl Jung, call it the shadow effect. People do not want to touch, they don't want to go inside of themselves to find out, who they are. And that's why I wrote the book called Fear, a Healthy Emotion if Well Managed. And that was what I presented actually at the University of Ghana International Conference. And it was amazing how much research out there that support the idea that fear is a healthy emotion, very, very healthy emotion if well managed. So the reason why people do not like to allow themselves to be is because they are afraid of their success, not so much about their failures. They are afraid that they might live out of their comfort zone and go to the place of unfamiliarity. Does that make sense, Diana?
Oh, yeah. Well, even, tying these into the laws of success of Napoleon Hill, because, Journey to Success radio is really all about connecting people to these fundamental principles of Napoleon Hill. And, the definiteness of purpose was one of those primary ones. And you mentioned that before. People need to have a reason to, everything, to wake up in the morning. Or you're a father, right?
Yes.
Yeah. I've got 4 kids, and I know that, you have children too. Even the idea of purpose. Think about a small child. If you're trying to convince a child why they need to learn to brush their teeth, they always need to know the why. Children and all human beings are curious. Tell me the why, and that will either motivate me or, tell me the why, and then maybe I don't agree and I don't do it. Or we can have a conversation about the why it's important. But the majority of people are really motivated the most when they have that internal, intrinsic motivation because they find their reason to be. I mean, it sounds pretty existential, it's pretty big, but it is such an important thing. And then taking the initiative and taking action and having, good, healthy habits. What are some of your success habits?
Well, the most important one for me is self-awareness. Self-awareness is understanding why I do what I do and understanding why I have the answers that I'm receiving. So spending more time asking myself questions is one of the greatest gifts I guess I have given to myself. Instead of putting the energy out there, blaming somebody else for my way of life, I have this thing called self-talk, where where you actually go in there and find out why you do what you do. And again, it has helped me, the Napoleon Hill's principles, the definite of purpose, is what actually got me back on track, if I may say that. Because what happened was before I used to bounce all over the place, working 2 or 3 jobs. And because I didn't have no purpose, I was just saying, okay, if I can work hard and save money and do this, do that. I never sat down and asked myself, why am I doing this? Where exactly am I trying to reach? So the moment I defined that the purpose of why I'm here and what I needed to do, that was the beginning of my success. So it goes back to my self-awareness, which is also called self-efficacy. Is what I'm a champion of. Preaching for people to study to understand themselves before you start blaming others for your misfortunes. I don't know if that makes sense, Diane.
Oh, of course. I think that's a really big step. Personal responsibility and understanding that it really is, everything is inside of you. And you have this is often an erroneous perception of any situation because you're just subjectively looking at it through the lenses of, your fears, the lenses of your past and things that have happened before. And asking yourself the questions can give you the clarity to then, get out of an unhappy situation or even just to change perception. People, it's the same thing as, Einstein, you can't solve a problem if you're always thinking about it in the same way. And I think, getting that accuracy and even opening up to more creativity to solve problems. Sometimes, I'm really big on helping people access more creativity instead of just being in the rut of the routine of the day and running around, getting creative with what they really desire to do and not just looking outside of them, but like you said, going inside and really asking, what is it that I want to do with my life? Those are fundamental questions. And sometimes I think, how is it that where did philosophy that was so important back, thousands of years ago, where did that really get lost? I guess maybe in the Dark Ages, and that's why it's called the Dark Ages. But are you also a big history fan? Do you love history?
Yes, I do. When it comes to learning, I think it was Albert Einstein who said that whenever you stop learning, you start dying, basically. So I'm a student of time learning. So whenever you say, okay, I've known enough, this is it. That's the day that you have declared your own death, because you're gonna live in a cocoon where nothing else matters to you. So you start to die silently. So all I'm saying is, I am a lifetime learner. Yes.
Yeah, you and me both.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and do you feel that would you like to stay in the academic world or with because your company is called the Focused Vision Consulting. So are you going to stay more as a consultant, management consulting, or do you feel that you'll even stay in an academic environment?
My answer will be both, because what I've realized is when you stay in academic environment too long, you ended up theorizing the experiences as opposed to practicalizing it or put it into practice. So recent trend right now in industrial and organizational psychology, what we are doing now is combining research and practice together, which means what you teach in the classroom, you actually take it out there to apply it in people's lives. So to answer your question, I think combining both of them, combining science or combining research and practice, is very critical for me. I cannot survive in one area or the other. I have to have two of them going at the same time, because I think I do have that energy to do that.
Yeah, that's great. Well, who has been one of your role models in life?
I have a lot of them, but I think my foundational role model will be my father.
Yeah,
was my great philosopher. He taught me one lesson that I still use on a daily basis. One of the informal education he gave me was, one day he gave me a talk when I was, I think, between 13 and 15 years of age. He told me that in a man's life or in an individual's life, the most critical time of anybody's life is between the ages of 18 and 40 years old. And he said that 22 years gap is where people either commit atrocities, end up in jail, or they will make discovery. So if you think about it, though, if we read the history, if we go back in history, most of these great men and women that we know, they reach their breakthroughs within that 22 window, between the ages of 18 and 40 years of age. And he said, if I can manage that window in my life, it is possible, it's likely that I will survive it. And if you think about it, Dr. Martin Luther King achieved, getting his PhD at the age of 26. And then, of course, he was assassinated at the age of 39. So that tells me a lot. That confirmed what my dad told me, many years ago. So my greatest influence in life is my dad, because he gave.
And now, what are your origins?
I'm from Africa, but I've realized that when people ask, before I used to be, answer that question with dignity, but I realized that when we start putting people in their class, or putting people according to their countries, it minimizes the potential of that person. Because what they usually do, people will ask me, then they will start asking you questions that has to do with, the deformities of that country. If that makes sense, Diane.
Yeah, well, I usually love being that, I'm American born. And when I graduated from college, I moved to Europe. So I've lived in Germany, and I've lived really, I guess it's been over 28 years now living in Italy. And I love culture. And I love really when cultures mix and blend. And I love multicultural societies where you can really enjoy the best that each person brings. And it could be in folklore, it could be, just like, your father's wisdom, because wisdom that's passed on from generations and generations is often different in one country than it is in another, based on, the value system, based on even the economic status. If a country is more in a survival mode, then the philosophy will be on getting out of survival mode, right? And if it's more of a pioneering country, or if it's more like here in Italy, there's just a lot of beauty, there's a lot of culture, there's a lot of depth, of roots, and I love to hear how people, because you and I are also have in common that we're immigrants. That we don't live in the country. We don't live in the country where we were born, and we don't work in the country where we were born. And so, for maybe even the listeners, this is a comment that my children make. My children say that when they're in Italy, because they were all four born in Italy, when they're in Italy, they feel American, and when they're in America, they feel Italian. Because when you're I would say an immigrant. I don't know if this is the same for you.
Yes.
We're never ever really at home, because we have these cultural roots from different places that we feel somehow we always feel a little bit different than the people that we're with. Does that make sense?
That is absolutely correct. I'm glad that you are touching that. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I'm glad you touched in that area. Actually, there was a time, I think a couple of years ago, one of my favorite artists. I'm sure you know him very well. It's called Andrea Bocelli.
Yes.
Yeah, he came to America one time, and he performed at the U.S. Center here. And while he was performing, I was just thinking how this man was born blind, and he went to law school and studied law, but he found his grace and calling in music. Now, music has taken him all over the world. And somebody like him, I was just thinking, you can't call Andrea Bocelli. He's an Italian, but that guy is a citizen of the world.
He is.
You can tell the way he performs on stage, he's so free. So the reason why I'm saying that is people that travel all over the world and you mix with other cultures, that's the most beautiful thing life can ever give. Because you think globally. You basically,
Yes.
somebody wants me, do you think in African dialect, or do you think in American dialect, or in American or English? So that was a good question. I said, wow. And that led me to start doing a research on it. And I found out that people that speak more than one language, they are, number one, they are slow to anger. And they are more compassionate. In other words, they are more humanitarian. Because I'm sorry?
Yeah, I was going to say, is that because of the creativity in the right brain is more developed?
Yes, there you go. So it's a blessing that I found myself in this space called life. And I'm able to apply, to travel extensively, to experience that human construct is one all over the world, whether you are in Auckland, New Zealand, or you are in Auckland in California. Human need is the same all over the world. And it brings me back to the book I'm writing around called Think. One of the chapters is called Think Human. If you think human, it breaks down the barriers of who is from where. You see that person's soul. Does that make sense, Diane?
Oh, yes, yes. I think this is actually going to be the really big sort of final shift, let's say, if I take it in big language, sort of like human consciousness, that, moving toward, 2020, there will be such a big part of the population, which are the millennials, and they have grown up with technology. They have tweeted and posted and connected with people worldwide already throughout pretty much the major part of their life. So I think the younger citizens of the world are already very global thinkers, where, my generation of, let's say baby boomers over 50, we were grown up, and not everyone of my age group has the opportunity to travel, where, often people don't have to get on an airplane to travel, but they can travel, as in these younger generations, tweeting and having someone on the other side of the world read their message, and they have conversations. I mean, I'm not talking about just the fun distraction of social media. I'm talking about, the conversations that they have, and even the idea of, Airbnb, or opening up, the bed and breakfast kind of style, opening your sofa in your house just for an international guest to sleep on. I think they are so much more open to the cooperation and collaboration and living each human being as a human being, not as an identity of just the country they come from and all the stereotypes that are connected to that, right?
That's correct. Actually, you just dropped a thought in my mind. A couple of years ago, I was coming back from Paris, back to U.S., and I was sitting next to a young lady, I should say, in the part of this millennium you were talking about, and our conversation ended up where we asked each other our faith, okay, and it turned out that she was different from my faith. But I asked her a very personal question: is it possible that we hold on to our faith because that's where we were born and raised? It's not so much that we understand it in its entirety. Is it possible that I'm holding on to mine because that's all I know? So that conversation actually ended up when she arrived in the U.S. She emailed me and said, "You know what? I never thought about it from that angle." I never thought about it from that angle. So we tend to hold on to our tradition as if it's the best. But in reality, we're just seeing it through the lenses that we've always seen it. So this conversation, I hope, will open a floor or open a floor for for people to realize that the way you once see it might not be the way they are, which is what psychiatrist Dr. Carl Hammerschlag, one of our well-known psychiatrists here in Arizona, always say, the way you once see it might not be the way they are. You just see it through your own lenses. Does that make sense, Diana?
Oh, exactly. And we can only, because I've studied neuroscience and psychosomatic illnesses, and studying, 5 years, that process, we actually help people unblock their psychosomatic illnesses really in a very symbolic way with keywording and, let's say reconnecting neurons, let's put it that way. So I'm very familiar with the biological aspect of the human being, which is one of the very basic foundations is the brain, as in the brain, which is really our program as a human being. It contains our program. Your brain only knows yourself. So as a consequence of that, then anything that is an action of anyone else, your brain does not know that. So your brain is always a little bit in that animal brain of flight and fight, because how the other person is different from what your brain tells you guarantees your survival. And we know all of the tragedies in the world of, xenophobia and being afraid of what is different. And it's really how the human being is programmed at the basic level. The brain only knows itself, as in your brain only knows you, my brain only knows me. And so it's only until we can, count to 6 to get beyond that flight and fight reaction, then we can get into that higher consciousness. And like you're saying, the thinking human, and observing people and saying, wow, isn't that interesting that they have a different opinion or that they do things differently than I do? And you really have to override the biological program that will have you be defensive or offensive, and really open up, I guess, connect then maybe the heart to the brain and start to really appreciate diversity instead of letting the instinct dominate and automatically going into fear and building, walls and closing off the opportunity to understand the differences. And like you said, with the traveling, it's all about testing really how well you live with diversity. You fly to another country, maybe you don't speak the language, the food is different, even the bathrooms are different, I laugh about that because my son went to a workshop. He studies architecture, and he went to a workshop in Japan. And he said it's a very interesting experience in the Japanese restrooms. And anything about traveling, tests your your ability to handle new, right?
Actually, I'm going to. Speaking of Japan, I'm leaving here on the 25th of July to the 29th of July to Yokohama, Japan. And that will be my first time going to Japan. So I'm really excited. I'm curious to see, how.
And what are you speaking? What are you speaking on?
Actually, it's an International Congress of Psychology conference, and I'm just going for the conference.
Super.
So I'm not actually presenting, but I'm just going for the conference. Because of
well, those are great places. Yeah, those are great places to connect other people and other universities, and like all conferences, there's a lot of networking and exchanging ideas and being invited then to other cool places to gain knowledge and even share your research.
Actually, it's funny that the president of Association for Psychological Science, she's going there to present. And coincidentally, she's from Arizona. Actually, she's here in Arizona. So it's amazing how we connected in Amsterdam the first time last 2 years when they had when we had a conference there. So that was how we connected ever since then. going back to what you said about the brain, I really like that, and I would like to take your attention, or take the audience attention, the listeners' attention to what Dr. Sarah Lazar from Harvard University said about neuroplasticity. I'm sure you are aware of that.
Yeah.
The way we think, whatever we focus our brain doing, our brain have that is elastic. Basically, your brain has that capacity to change shape and build on whatever you spend so much energy or thinking. So you're absolutely right that we can change the way we think, basically, and you are the one that controls what goes in and out of your brain. Does that make sense?
Exactly. On a conscious level, you really, yeah, even because, I've been in corporate training for 25 years. And one of the very first things that I will tell people is you have to think what you're thinking about, which means you sort of double feed it through. You're thinking a thought, well, then think about the thought you're thinking and then ask yourself the question, is this beneficial or is it unbeneficial? Is it productive or unproductive? Is it self-sabotaging or self-supporting? And if it is on, let's say, the negative side, change it. You're exactly right. We have that free choice and willpower to change our thoughts.
Yep, Doctor. I'm sorry, I'm just quoting all over the place because that's my passion. That's my.
Well, we warned people at the beginning that we love behavior, and be it the fear, be it the collaboration, be it the internationality that we have. We're here just to let people know that there's a way to be happier, and there's a way to be more successful. There's a way to feel proud of yourself every day. And it starts with asking yourself those questions when you are unhappy. What's making me unhappy? Why are we blaming it on someone else? And go inside and spend quiet time. I mean, I have, and then I'll ask you, you can share that. I have a morning ritual. I'm a very morning person. And there were periods, even with, 4 kids and tiring days, plus working. But I still promised myself that I would wake up at 5:30 or 6, and I really just sort of walk around the house and get things in order. Put away the dishes that weren't put away, or start a load of laundry. And I have this morning, this half an hour of just me and myself doing mundane tasks. But it's almost like a prayer, because I do the mundane things that I don't need to think about. But in that moment, I'm feeling gratitude. I'm feeling, happy for my health. I'm, feeling blessed for my children. And it's time alone with me and no distractions. And, I invite the listeners to find that time, and not just to go over and over in their brain about, like, say, the self-defeating thoughts, but really stay in that space of nurturing positive self-thoughts and gratitude thoughts about, everything around you. And do you have some kind of morning ritual or afternoon or evening ritual?
Yes, I do. Mine is, of course, I pray. Prayer, not necessarily going on your knees and do the ritual that we know, but I can walk around and have this self-talk or this internal dialogue that I do. And I always start to say in the morning that today is the best day of my life, because today will never repeat it again. This is it. So what is it that I can do this day that will improve other people's life, way of living? So I always use this quote that says, if you hear a voice within you say you cannot paint, by all means, paint, and that voice will be silent. And those are the words of Vincent Van Gogh. I'm sure you know Vincent Van Gogh work.
Yes. So
I walk around telling myself that this is the day. Don't allow destructive fear to take over you. Arise and shine. Spread your wings and do the best you can today. Because I know from research that energy or willpower is limited, okay, according to research on a daily basis. So I will decide what am I going to put my energy today to do. Yeah, because energy is limited. Any time that I spend grumbling, that's a wasted time of my day.
And wasted energy.
Yes, wasted energy.
Yes.
So in my book, my first book, the Power of Engagement, I talked about the mysteries of gratitude. And there are 5 steps that I outlined. The mysteries of gratitude, just waking up in the morning and say, I'm grateful. And the 5 steps that I outlined was appreciate small victories. Just by waking up in the morning, it's a blessing. You didn't play any role to wake up in that morning, okay? And the second one is to be grateful for others' successes. Appreciate other people's succeeding. And then just be grateful that you are alive. Be in the now. This is me now. There's a lot of literature out there that talked about presence. Being in the now, and of course appreciate your loved ones. If you go through your life or through the day thinking about all this desire thinking or positive psychology, it does help a lot. It does help a lot. So mine is just going through my brain all that I have studied and say thank you God for bringing me into this brand new day. That's just for me. And it has helped me do a lot of positive work in the world.
Yeah, you sure have. You sure have lots of positive work all over the world. That's great. Well, what's the no, I was going to say, what advice would you give to someone who's really feeling stuck? I mean, would you tell them to, go ahead and get these, the book of engagement and go through the gratitude? Someone who's just really stuck. What's that first thing, like to push them out of the mud? You can imagine someone like as a metaphor who's got their heavy hiking boots and they just can't, they're glued into that mud. What's the first thing that they need to do to get out?
That's a very good question. Well, first of all, we have to admit where we are at the moment. I'll use myself for example. If I'm saying that I have failed, because usually when you feel down, means that you have failed in something. You feel like you have failed in something, right? But I'm here to say that life is blessed with failures. Like Dr. Toni Morrison said that failure is data. Failure is data, which means it's an information that needs to be interpreted. So you have to admit that, okay, this is the area I'm not doing well, first of all. And the beauty of failure is that it opens other doors. It gives you that gift of promise, if you can see it from that angle. So admit where you are first. And then after you admit it, then you ask yourself, now what? I wrote an article called Now What? And I received a lot of attention from that article. I wrote another one called What's Next? Life is full of what's next. So, first of all, admit where you're at, and then you ask yourself, why am I feeling this way? I've noticed that I always take the question back to that person, back to myself. Why am I feeling this way? If you answer that question, it will take you to the next level. And you have to believe that the failure is universal. If somebody in Italy is feeling that he has failed in something, it is possible somebody in Mesa, Arizona is having the same feeling, which what psychologists also call it pervasiveness explanatory style, which means you don't take your problem is not just made for you. It is a universal problem, which means what I'm going through, somebody else is going through it. And the moment you embrace it from that angle, it will allow you to think broadly as opposed to thinking, why me, poor me? Because people tend to personalize their problem as opposed to using this pervasiveness style to say, okay, if I'm going through this, I'm sure there's somebody out there that can help me get through this. And these books that we have published, including the one that is just coming out, the Journey to Success Book 2, we have a lot of information there that you can use to help yourself. And my book, The Power of Engagement, will actually help in the process, because the way you engage yourself internally is determining how you express yourself outwardly. So if I want to know what you're thinking, I just watch what you're doing. What you're doing is a measurement of what you're thinking.
Exactly.
So we have to embrace it and understand where we are now, and then we take it from there. I don't know if that makes sense to you, Diana.
Yeah, that is actually perfect, because the idea is that people are actually sort of in denial. When you said the very first step is really accept where you are right now. And I find there's this big thing of denial. No. You'll ask someone, how are you? And they're like, oh, fine. And, I do that because even with my coaching clients, I always have them fill out a questionnaire about their challenges and desires. And, on maybe social media, they have this super smiley face and everything is fine. And when they get down to the nitty gritty of a questionnaire, happiness from rating it from 1 to 10, they're only like 5. And I'm like, geez, isn't that a big contrast with how you show up in the social world, but then finally admitting to yourself that your happiness is only 5, and then taking the step to get coaching because you realize that that's not enough. Happiness only 5 or halfway there, even 7 out of 10 is not enough when you really can find that space of happiness when you know yourself, when you've got that self-observation and, the gratitude. I'm, really into gratitude. I feel very blessed all the time. I think that's sort of a prime energy source for me. And I think that's great. The idea of really understanding, where am I right now? And do I want to do something about it? Because there are a lot of people, even, in coaching, that they will admit to being dissatisfied in their marriage or dissatisfied in their job. But then to take that step to improve it, they're not ready. They realize they're there, but they're so stuck, or what they know is that unhappiness, and they sort of prefer to keep it because they don't know what happiness could change for them in their life, right?
That's absolutely correct. And that's why I think we've touched on it, that people, we love the familiar, we love tradition, we love routine. And once you get in that lifestyle of being in the same space all the time, it tends to be your world. So if you are familiar, if you are used to being sad all the time, or you are used to being 5, for example, in your happiness rating, all of a sudden you think that that's the best you can offer to yourself. But unfortunately, you're actually shortchanging yourself. You are robbing yourself the worth of happiness and joy that this world can bring. And you and I can agree that just by living in a different culture has given you that window to see that there are other people. I think I watched one of your videos, Diana. You talked about how in America we are so caught up in work, as opposed to in Europe. It seems like they have more quality of life when it comes to taking time to enjoy the day. And those are the things that we don't even know unless if you travel or if you read or if you ask questions. Where you are is only just the sneak peek of where you could become or what you could become. So getting off out of your comfort zone and do something out of ordinary. Enjoy life. I think that's the most gift you can give to yourself.
Yeah, well, and ask yourself, what really brings me joy? And I don't believe, because I've coached some very some very important people here in Europe, and it's funny because they're families that have wealth for like 1,000 years. They've been wealthy, and I mean that for me is just, that's a lot of years. Those are old families. And so they're pretty much families that have, on an economic basis and even on a material basis, they have lots of houses, they have the yacht, they have the jewels, and they come to me for coaching because they realize that getting all that stuff outside of them isn't true fulfillment. And what they're looking for at a certain point in their life is that something from inside of them comes out, and actually that bringing out that more that they can be from the inside is actually what fulfills them more than another car, another house, another, watch or whatever. And I think that's beautiful. I mean, obviously, if you don't have, then you're probably still looking at the people that have, and either there's a little bit of envy or, oh, I wish I had. But real fulfillment. I mean, I think one of the people that I know that is probably one of the happiest, most joyful people is a woman who used to help me iron when my children were small, and she would come and just do my ironing for 3 hours a week. And she came from a family of, 13 siblings. And maybe she finished the 5th grade. So, but the simplicity of her philosophy of life and her willingness to always give. I mean, she came every week. She would bake a cake for my kids. And, she was not in an economic situation that was very, prosperous. But she was always so innerly joyful and happy and radiant, having so little but feeling so rich because of that just beautiful soul, and always willing from the inside of her to give toward the others. And that's one thing I would add. I think when a lot of people are down, depressed, sad, blocked in certain situations, when you start to give to other people is when you get out of your own, recycling negative thoughts, and you get in a different energy. You get in a whole different state of being, because you realize this, how we started the conversation, this interconnectedness of everyone. And all of a sudden you become part of contributing to the greater good, and it's not about just give me to be happy, but it's really making things come from you. It's a big shift, and I've seen some depressed people really step out of depression because they started to give.
I totally
give
agree.
Of who they are.
There was a book I read some time ago called Peace of Mind by a Jewish rabbi, Joshua, Liebman. One of the chapters that he discussed there, he called it "Love Thyself Properly." Love thyself properly. Yeah, because it's very difficult for you to give if you don't feel whole. It's very, very difficult. You have to love yourself properly first.
Yes.
And goes back to what I've read one time about the 3 dimensions of life. The 3 dimensions of life. The first one is the length of life, which is knowing thyself. And the second one is the breadth of life, loving your neighbors or loving others. And the third one is the height of life, connecting to the higher power. Whatever that your higher power is, you connect to it. When these 3 dimensions come together, you will be a complete person. So we need to understand that in order for us to be whole, we have to connect to something higher than us, and we have to first of all make peace with ourselves. before you can actually give peace to others. And when you give peace to others, I think this world will be a better place, Diana.
Yes. Yes. Beautiful. Wow. Well, do you have any final comments? That was actually a beautiful way to end this chit chat that we had. That was really beautiful because I have the same feeling. We really striving, if everyone strives, when everyone strives to make this world a better place in the small, tiny things. It could be, the woman who just helped me iron, or, helping a neighbor walk their dog. It doesn't have to be these big Mother Teresa, Gandhi kind of, things. It's in the small little things that we do every day, in those actions that help the people, like you said, the breath, helping your neighbors. Yeah, beautiful. Any final comments, or even remind people where they can reach out to you, your website or telephone number, or find you on social media?
Yes, one thing I will also add there is from Dr. Maya Angelou, who once said that be a rainbow in someone else's cloud.
Beautiful.
In someone else's cloud. And spend some time knowing yourself. When you know yourself, you realize that you are a universe. You are a nation of your own self. You are an institution of your own self. Don't worry about what others are saying so much about that. Spend some time to understand what makes you tick, what makes you who you are. And the moment you are comfortable with who you are, trust me, you will radiate. People will run to you. And to get more information, let me not get too carried away here. To get more information about reading, you can reach me at www.f like Frank, V like Victor, growth.com. Or you can also reach me at the Power of Engagement at att.net. Or you can go to Amazon and just type in my last name, and you will get my books.
Yeah, good. They are very good. They're good reads. Yeah, your last name is spelled AgbanYim, and yeah, you're a powerhouse. This was it was a very big pleasure for me to have the opportunity to interview and talk to you today. And this is the Journey of Success Radio. Thanks again for being here with us, and have a great day.
Thank you so much, Diana.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Journey to Success Radio. If you or anyone you know would like to be interviewed for the show, email Tom at tom2tall.com for details.